So this just happened today at school, so it's still fresh in my mind. We were in algebra and we were taking a test. The teacher was out of the classroom for a bit, and someone asked me for the answers. Now I had secretly hated this kid for almost a year, because he had destroyed my $210 phone and only paid me back $20, and said hopefully this will be enough for a screen protector. So anyways, it turned out he had skipped a question. So he accidentally had about 75% of the questions answered in the wrong box, making them all wrong. He asked me to erase them for him so he could copy my answers because his arm hurt. I was just about done with mine, so I finished it and erased his, but instead of giving him my answers, I turned my paper in. He now had 5 to 10 minutes to answer about 30 questions. The teacher then walked back in while he was pleading with me and asked what was going on. I told him that David was trying to copy my answers. No regrets. Super short story, and maybe not that malicious, but here we go. So I was at my cousin's, let's call her birthday girl, 18'th birthday, and the entire family was there, even our cousin on parole. Let's call him Jailbird. So Jailbird was there with his girlfriend, and me and birthday girl were at the computer acting as DJs, king some songs, when Jailbird's girlfriend asked me to put on New York, New York. I knew very well that she meant Empire State of Mind by Jay-Z and Alicia Keys, but I said sure, and queued up New York, New York by Frank Sinatra. When the song came up, I made sure to tell her, hey, your song is on, and she promptly told me no, I wanted to hear New York, New York, in a very angry voice, and I just shrugged and answered, with a smug grin, this is New York, New York. Are you sure you didn't mean Empire State of Mind? If you can't even get the name right, don't expect me to put on the song you wanted. This took place around 2012-ish. The pride of the high school was always the marching band. For that reason the band was a quarter of the nearly 800 students at the school. We had about 185 students the year this compliance happened. So every year the band went on a trip out of state to compete in the Bands of America competition. It was the trip everyone looked forward to. We did a ton of fun things, missed a week of school, and the last day there we competed in a professional stadium. The band director would call and schedule things for us, so we don't randomly show up to a mall or a McDonald's or something and him throw 200 kids at them. He had called ahead to one mall to work out eating at the food court, as that was the easiest while we were traveling there. He usually planned these in the trips when it was time for the bus drivers to rest for a couple hours and we were allowed to get food and shop at the mall. So we get to this point in our trip, we are given the speech of behave yourselves and reminded of the consequences if we don't. We go inside and start shopping and eating, then everyone starts getting stopped by mall security. Then over the intercom system it is announced for city, high school students to come to the front area of the mall. They said they had a rule that didn't allow kids to be at the mall past 6. Not even with adults. Not even a quarter of us had eaten. No one had caused problems, but they wanted us out. My bank director gets a hold of the person he had planned it with, and they agree, if we go in 5 kids to every adult we can continue as planned. The cheeky grin on the security guard's face as he said, there are nearly 200 students here, you would need 40 adults, you only have 7, is forever burned into my head as is the drop of his face as a senior raised his hand and said, I'm 18, I count as an adult. And then all of us 18 plus aged students stood up and started pulling IDs out. Smug security guard had to check every ID and give out wristbands to the adults. We had enough 18-year-olds that we technically didn't need the chaperones that came, so they all sat around and watched as us 18-year-olds handled our 5 kids, and no harm came of them all. The security guards were very grumpy that we had the adults needed. We got our food, I bought suspenders and a panda hat from Hot Topic, like I did every bank trip, and we placed fairly decently that year. My friend needed to pull money out of his account. We went to Walmart to get a personal check cashed. The lady at the service desk told us that he couldn't cash a personal check written by himself. We were about to leave. Then I said, she said you couldn't cash a check written by yourself. Can I cash the check if you write it out to me? So we went back and asked her if I could cash a check written by him. She looked defeated, said yes, and let me cash the check. About 10 or so years ago, I used to do triathlon training, so would get regular massages. These usually had to be scheduled during business hours, so I would schedule them for 8 AM and I cleared it with my manager to come to work a little late on those days. This usually only happened about once a month. Anyway, as per my agreement with my manager, I would always make up the lost time by working through lunch or staying late. I should also point out that I usually was at my desk and working 15 to 30 minutes before 8:30 AM. I usually worked through lunch anyway, and I often stayed back a little after 5:30 PM to finish up. One day, the boss called a company-wide staff meeting and told us that if we were going to be late for work for any reason, we needed to submit a leave request. This policy was clearly aimed at me, as it took place a day or so after one of my massages. Since it was clear to me that my boss was more interested in me being at my desk by 8:30 AM every morning than the quality of my work, I decided to comply. From then on, I made sure I arrived at my desk and started work exactly at 8:30 AM every morning. I also took my full hour lunch breaks for the first time ever. I would go and sit in the park across the road every day and soak in the sunshine. And I made sure I was out the door dead on 5:30 PM. I went from doing an average of 9 hours of work a day to doing exactly 8 hours every day. Tried to keep it as short as possible, but I think you really need some inside details to get where I'm coming from. It gets less of a heavy subject towards the end. So a long time ago I was in a relationship and ended up living with him. During the move to our apartment and the period after that, his true colors came to light. He was mentally abusive and manipulative. He would try to control every aspect of my life and tried to teach me my place. I later learned he had borderline and was possibly a psychopath, the non-murdering kind, but he didn't get diagnosed until the last few months of our time together. This story is not about those details, but it paints a small picture. So when I finally decided to leave him, he got very angry, and when he realized his control over me was slipping away, he started harassing me, my mother and my best friend, M. He accused me of cheating on him and said I have been for months. Put it on the book of faces for everyone to judge me, etc. We had like 5 months left on the rent contract of our apartment, and I had every intention of moving out in peace and just be done with it in a civil manner. We sort of had a taking turns at home arrangement going on, but for every 3 weeks he was there, I had one. When we broke up, I said I didn't want to leave him high and dry and would help with these last months while temporarily living with my mother. He didn't really have anywhere to go, just a friend. But when we still had like 3 months to go, he was sure of the fact I was in bed with my best friend and even went to his house to confront us. One of the housemates let him in. I was in the city with my friends and my best friend was at his parents' house, but my ex was sure we just locked the door to the room for him, and apparently he stood there knocking for almost 2 hours and then sat in his car outside for another hour and a half. He left me and my mother voicemails calling me all kind of names, and he texted me that I had 2 days to move my crap out of the apartment and after that he would throw it all away. And I was so happy he came to this idea, because at this point I was done and he didn't seem to realize what the consequences could be. So the day after, I got help from my brother, stepfather, and stepbrother and moved my stuff out. I just had 2 conditions. Is it mine? And do I want to take this? Meaning if it was mine and I didn't want it, he could throw it away. There was a lot left that was very big, so to move it, you would need to rent a van, like the couch, or it had to be disassembled, like the closet. I left it all behind for him to clean up, or in his words throw away, as it was all bought by me. He came home that evening and got super angry and tried calling me dozens of times in a few hours, then texted me why the FCK I left such a mess and didn't take all my stuff. I answered he told me himself he would throw everything away after 2 days and added a nice little screenshot with a red circle around his own words. To make matters worse, I stopped paying the rent the last months. You see, the contract was in his name only and I transferred my half to his banking account every month. The person who rented to us knew of this arrangement and was fine with it. I called her beforehand to explain everything and that I wouldn't support him the last months, knowing he couldn't pay the rent by himself. She understood completely and said since I was not contracted she would not be able to hold me responsible. You can imagine the storm of verbal doo-doo that came over me after he realized I wasn't paying. And I just told him you wouldn't pay for a place you don't live anymore either. My crap isn't even there anymore. You threw it away. Thank you for watching. Slap that like button and comment your opinion on these stories below. I'm waiting. Write that comment. Seriously. Have you written it yet? If you don't comment, you make a bunny cry somewhere. You're not that kind of person. I know. Anyways, peace out and catch you tomorrow.